I didn't find the apartment during the day. I found it late at night, scrolling without intention, letting listings blur together as my eyes grew tired. Most of them looked the same. Overpriced, poorly lit, obviously rushed. Then one stopped me. The price was lower than it should have been. Not suspiciously cheap, just enough to feel wrong. The photos were clean, almost sterile. White walls, empty rooms, no personal items anywhere. No photos on the fridge. No shoes by the door. No curtains drawn to keep out the sun. It looked less like a home and more like a place that had never been lived in. That detail stayed with me. I checked the posting date. It had been online for months. In this city, that doesn't happen. I messaged the landlord expecting a delayed reply. Instead, the response came almost immediately. Polite, short, efficient. He asked when I wanted to view the place, not if. During the walkthrough, nothing felt damaged. No stains, no smells, no obvious signs of neglect. The silence inside the apartment was noticeable, but I told myself it was a good thing. People pay extra for quiet. Before I left, I asked why the unit had been vacant for so long. The landlord paused. Then he smiled briefly, like someone choosing their words carefully. People don't usually stay, he said. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. I signed the lease the next morning. At the time, I thought I had found a rare opportunity. I didn't realize the apartment hadn't been waiting to be rented. It had been waiting for someone to notice. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. No traffic. No voices. Not even the distant hum of televisions through the walls. The kind of silence that doesn't relax you. It presses against your ears until you become aware of your own breathing. I unpacked slowly, trying to make the space feel lived in. A mattress on the floor. A lamp by the corner. A chair I didn't remember owning but had somehow followed me through every move. Still, the apartment refused to feel occupied. Around 2:17 a.m., I heard footsteps. They weren't inside my unit. They came from above. Measured. Heavy. Like someone pacing a familiar route. Bedroom to window, window to door, over and over again. I checked the listing again the next morning. The unit above mine was marked unavailable. Not rented. I told myself buildings settle at night. Pipes knock. Floors shift. That explanation lasted until the second night. The footsteps returned, but this time they stopped directly above my bedroom. There was a pause, then a dragging sound, slow and deliberate, like furniture being pulled across concrete. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. When I pulled away, the sound continued. On the third night, the footsteps moved to the hallway outside my door. They stopped inches from it. I stood frozen, hand hovering near the handle. Heart pounding so hard I was sure whoever stood outside could hear it. Then came the softest sound imaginable, a breath. Not mine. The next morning, I asked the landlord about the noise. He didn't look surprised. Old building, he said quickly. Sound travels. I asked about the unit above me. His eyes flicked away for half a second. No one lives there, he said. That night, the footsteps returned. But this time, they were inside my apartment. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the edge of my mattress until sunrise, lights on, phone in my hand, waiting for something else to happen, or for nothing to happen at all. When morning came, the apartment looked normal again. Too normal, like it had never betrayed me. I decided to meet the neighbors. The woman across the hall answered after the third knock. She was older, maybe late 50s, her eyes sharp in a way that suggested she noticed everything. Before I could introduce myself, she glanced behind me, past my shoulder, into my apartment. You moved in, she said. Not a question. I asked her how long she'd lived here. Long enough, she replied. Then she lowered her voice. They don't stay long in your unit. I asked her why. She hesitated, fingers tightening around the doorframe. Because it's never empty, she said quietly. I laughed, a nervous reflex. She didn't. She told me about the man who lived there before me. Quiet, polite, paid rent early. He complained once about noises. Footsteps, breathing, movement in rooms he hadn't entered yet. One morning, the police came. They found him in the bathroom. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. The official report said cardiac arrest. But the neighbor said something else bothered her. The mirror, she whispered. It was covered. Covered in what? I asked. She shook her head. They wouldn't say. I went back inside my apartment and locked the door. That afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I searched public records, news archives, anything tied to the address. It took hours, but eventually, I found a short article buried in a local crime log. Unexplained death. Apartment unit repeatedly relisted. No suspects. That night, I avoided the mirror. It didn't help. At 3:04 a.m., I heard the bathroom door creak open by itself, and something inside whispered my name. I didn't answer the whisper. I stayed perfectly still, staring at the bathroom door as if looking at it too long might make whatever was behind it real. The sound faded slowly, like breath disappearing from glass. By morning, I convinced myself it was stress. That lie collapsed when I noticed the marks. Thin lines ran along the bathroom wall, vertical and uneven, like scratches made by fingernails. I hadn't seen them before. I knew I hadn't. I touched one. It crumbled slightly under my thumb, old plaster flaking away. Behind it, another layer, dark, stained. I stopped digging when the smell hit me. It wasn't rot. It was metallic, sharp, familiar in a way I couldn't immediately place. I called the landlord. He didn't answer. Later that day, I spoke to the building's maintenance man. He was quiet, older, hands permanently stained from work that never really cleaned off. When I mentioned the scratches, his face tightened. They're not from this year, he said. He told me the building used to house short-term tenants. People passing through. People without families nearby. He said there had been incidents, domestic disputes, missing persons reports, calls that went unanswered. Police came more than once, he admitted. Especially for your unit. I asked him why the apartment kept getting rented. He looked at the floor. Because paperwork closes faster than investigations. That night, I couldn't ignore the walls anymore. I pressed my ear against them. I swear I heard movement, not walking, not breathing, but something being dragged slowly, methodically, like weight being shifted from one place to another. Then came the knocking. 3 slow taps. From inside the wall. I didn't sleep that night. The knocking didn't return, but its absence felt intentional. Like something waiting to see what I would do next. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay ignorant anymore. Whatever had happened in this apartment wasn't just rumor. It was documented, buried, ignored. I went to the local precinct. The officer at the desk looked bored until I gave him the address. Then his expression shifted. Not alarm, not concern, but recognition. The kind you get when someone brings up something they wish had stayed forgotten. He told me the records were old. Some sealed, some missing. Missing how? I asked. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he mentioned a fire. Small. Contained. Years ago. File room damage. Water and smoke. He said it casually, like it explained everything. Didn't. One folder survived. Unlabeled. Thin. Misplaced. Inside were reports spanning almost a decade. Tenants who moved in alone and stopped answering calls. No signs of forced entry. No witnesses. Always the same unit. Always the same outcome. One note stood out, handwritten in the margin of a report. Unit appears occupied after time of death. The officer took the folder back before I could photograph it. You didn't get this from me, he said quietly. That night, I returned to the apartment with a different awareness. I wasn't alone. I never had been. The footsteps came early this time. They didn't pace. They circled me. And when I checked the bathroom mirror, uncovered now, I saw handprints forming on the glass from the other side, pressing outward. I stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the bathroom tile. The handprints stayed. They didn't fade like steam should. They remained sharp, defined, each finger stretched as if straining to break through the glass. I wiped my eyes, convinced exhaustion was distorting my senses. When I looked again, the mirror was clean. Too clean. That's when I noticed the reflection. The room behind me looked wrong. The angle was slightly off, the shadows deeper than they should have been. And in the corner, where my coat rack stood, there was a shape that didn't belong. Tall, still, not reflected when I turned around. Only in the mirror. I covered the glass with a towel and left the apartment for the night. The next day, I took the landlord's silence as confirmation. He knew. Everyone connected to this place knew. I broke into the storage room in the basement, where old tenant belongings were sometimes abandoned. That's where I found the box. No name, no date, just an apartment number written in fading marker, mine. Inside were personal items. A wallet, keys, a cracked phone, and photos, dozens of them, each taken inside the apartment from different angles at different times. Some showed the previous tenant sleeping. Some showed him staring into the mirror. The last photo was different. It showed him standing against the wall, arms pressed back, face contorted in terror, while the wall itself bulged outward, as if something inside was pushing through. That night, the walls began to breathe. Slow, deep, in and out, and I understood the truth. The apartment wasn't haunted. It was occupied. Once you recognize a pattern, you can't unsee it. I spread the photos across the floor, arranging them by date, by angle, by time of day. The apartment repeated itself. Same corners, same shadows. Like it was documenting its own routine. The tenants changed. The watcher did not. The victims all shared something in common. They were alone. No frequent visitors. No partners. No children. No co-workers checking in daily. People who could disappear quietly without setting off alarms. People whose lives could be reduced to a closed lease and a relisted unit. I realized then why the apartment let some people leave. It wasn't random. It was selective. Noise mattered. Connections mattered. The more rooted a tenant was to the outside world, the harder it became for the apartment to finish what it started. The previous man had worked nights, rarely spoke to neighbors, paid everything online. Perfect. I wasn't. I had friends, messages, a job that noticed absence. That night, the apartment tested me. The breathing returned, louder now, synchronized with the walls themselves. The floor vibrated gently under my feet. In the bedroom, the scratches deepened, lines carving themselves fresh into plaster. Then the whisper came again. Not my name this time. A question. Will anyone notice? I answered out loud, voice shaking. Yes. The apartment didn't like that. The lights flickered. Picture frame shattered. The bathroom door slammed hard enough to crack the hinge. For the first time, the fear felt impatient, angry. I grabbed my phone and started recording. If this place fed on silence, I would give it noise. And for the first time since moving in, the footsteps stopped. I tried to leave the next morning. Boxes packed. Door unlocked. Foot on the threshold. The hallway looked longer than it had the day before. The lights buzzed unevenly, blinking in a slow rhythm that matched the pounding in my chest. When I stepped out, the door behind me shut on its own, softly, deliberately. I turned the handle. Locked. I hadn't locked it. I laughed once, sharp and brittle, the sound echoing down the corridor like it didn't belong to me anymore. I told myself it was an old lock, a bad latch. I tried again. Nothing. The building manager arrived an hour later, annoyed more than concerned. He jiggled the handle, frowned, then forced it open with a shoulder check. The door swung inward easily, as if it had never resisted at all. Inside, the apartment looked staged. No scratches, no cracked hinge, no broken frame. The wall where the breathing had been strongest was smooth and freshly painted, still faintly damp. "You sure this is the right unit?" he asked. I showed him the video. The audio played fine. My breathing, the thud of movement, but the screen showed only darkness. No flicker, no motion, no sound from the walls. Just me, standing alone, whispering into nothing. He gave me a look reserved for people who make problems expensive. "If you want out," he said, "there's a process." That night, the apartment punished me. The walls tightened. The air grew heavy, thick enough to slow every breath. The whisper returned, no longer curious. "You tried to remove me. The floor creaked as if something massive shifted its weight beneath it. I realized then, you don't evict what owns the space. You either feed it, or you expose it. I stopped trying to convince people. Instead, I waited. The apartment had grown confident. The sounds returned earlier each night. The breathing no longer hid behind walls. It moved freely, drifting from room to room like it wanted to be noticed. That's when the neighbor across the hall knocked on my door. She looked shaken, paler than before. Her voice dropped the moment I opened it. "It's louder now," she said. "Whatever you did, it's louder." She stepped inside without waiting for permission. The apartment reacted immediately. The lights dimmed. The air thickened. Then she heard it. A slow exhale from the bathroom. She grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "That's not plumbing." The mirror fogged on its own. A handprint formed. She screamed. The sound felt important, real, undeniable. I pulled out my phone and recorded as the whisper returned, clear enough to register through the microphone. "You brought someone." The neighbor backed away, eyes wide. "It knows," she whispered. We didn't sleep. By morning, she insisted on calling the police. When they arrived, the apartment performed again. Clean, quiet, harmless. But something had changed. One officer lingered near the bathroom longer than necessary. "You smell that?" he asked. "Metallic. Faint. Blood doesn't disappear easily. And neither does guilt." The officer who smelled it didn't file a report. He came back alone that evening, off duty, wearing plain clothes and an expression that said curiosity had finally outweighed protocol. He asked questions I hadn't expected, about the building's age, about renovations, about what existed here before the apartments were built. I didn't know. He did. The building stood on the footprint of an old boarding house, torn down decades ago after a fire that never made national news. Mostly transients lived there. Cash rent. No records worth preserving. When the fire burned through the lower floors, the official count listed 3 dead. Unofficially, more were missing. The officer told me something else, something that never made it into reports. Investigators at the time believed the fire hadn't started by accident. Survivors spoke of locked doors, of rooms that grew impossibly hot too fast, of walls that seemed to close in. After the fire, the site was sealed quickly. Too quickly. Construction followed within the year. Concrete poured over ash. The apartment wasn't haunted by victims. It was built from them. The officer stood near the same wall where the breathing always began. He pressed his palm flat against it. The surface pulsed faintly, like a distant heartbeat. "I hear it," he said. That was the first time anyone else said it out loud. The whisper came immediately, sharper now, irritated. "You remember." The officer stepped back. "It reacts to recognition," he said, "like it needs witnesses." Before he left, he warned me. Exposure wouldn't kill it, but it would make it hungry. That night, the breathing synchronized with my own, and the walls leaned closer. The apartment didn't attack me right away. It waited. The next few days passed in an uneasy calm. No footsteps, no breathing, no whispers. The silence felt strategic, like something conserving energy. Then the headaches started. Dull at first, settling behind my eyes, growing heavier each hour I stayed inside. My phone battery drained faster than it should have. Messages failed to send. Calls dropped mid-sentence. The apartment wasn't violent. It was isolating me. When I left the unit, the pressure lifted instantly. When I returned, it wrapped back around my skull like a tightening band. By the 3rd day, I realized the pattern. It wasn't feeding on fear anymore. It was feeding on attention. Every time I spoke about it, every time I recorded, every time someone acknowledged its presence, the apartment grew stronger. The walls felt warmer, the air thicker. I tested it. I stayed silent for an entire night. No recording, no speaking, no reacting. The breathing stopped. The scratches faded. The apartment sulked. But silence had a cost too. The longer I ignored it, the harder it pressed against my thoughts, inserting images that weren't memories. Rooms closing in, hands reaching through walls, people screaming without sound. By morning, I was shaking. The apartment didn't want worship. It wanted participation. And when I refused, it punished me by showing me what happened to those who never spoke at all. That night, the mirror uncovered itself, and someone stared back who wasn't me. I recognized the face in the mirror before I understood why. It wasn't clear, more like a suggestion of features, assembled from shadow and memory. But the longer I stared, the more certain I became. I had seen him before, in the box, one of the photos, the previous tenant. I returned to the basement storage that same night, hands shaking as I reopened the box. I flipped through the photos again until I found it. The same hollow eyes, the same crooked tilt of the head, captured mid-fear. There was a folded paper beneath the photos I hadn't noticed before. A lease agreement. His name was printed clearly. So was the end date. He hadn't broken the lease. It had ended. Naturally. I searched deeper, property records, archived complaints, anything that matched his name. I found one final entry. A maintenance request filed 2 days before his death. Walls moving. Bathroom mirror wrong. Please respond. Marked resolved. That's when it hit me. The apartment didn't kill him quickly. It convinced him nothing was happening. The silence before his death wasn't mercy. It was preparation. The whisper returned as I folded the paper back into the box. You read him. The walls tightened again. Not in anger, but anticipation. The apartment wasn't just feeding. It was collecting. And now it knew I understood the process. Understanding, I realized too late, was how you got added to the list. The apartment made its offer without words. That night, the pressure in the air eased. The headache stopped. The walls loosened their grip, retreating just enough to feel like relief. It was the calmest the unit had felt since I moved in. That's how I knew something was wrong. I slept. When I woke, the apartment looked improved. The scratches were gone. The bathroom mirror was spotless. Even the lighting felt warmer, inviting in a way that felt deeply unnatural. Then I noticed the door. A second lock had been installed from the inside. New, solid, heavy. On the kitchen table sat an envelope. Inside was a lease addendum, clean, professionally printed. No changes to rent. No penalties. Just one clause added in careful legal language. Tenant agrees to extended occupancy with no fixed termination date. Below it, a pen. The whisper returned, gentle now. Stay. Images filled my head, quiet nights. No more fear. No more resistance. The apartment wasn't threatening me anymore. It was recruiting. I understood then why some tenants lasted longer than others. Why some deaths were ruled natural. Compliance bought comfort. Silence bought peace. I picked up the pen and put it down. The moment I refused, the apartment changed. The walls shuddered violently. The breathing returned, frantic now. Angry. The mirror cracked down the center, splitting my reflection in two. You were supposed to accept. The apartment didn't want tenants anymore. It wanted permanence. I didn't try to reason with it anymore. I streamed. Not privately. Not quietly. I went live. Phone taped to a shelf. Camera aimed at the bathroom. Microphone open. I said the address out loud. I named the building. I described the fire, the missing tenants, the sealed files. The apartment reacted instantly. The walls convulsed, cracks racing outward like veins. The breathing became a roar, no longer pretending to be human. The mirror shattered completely, glass exploding across the floor as a shape pressed forward from the other side. Featureless, wrong, built from movement instead of form. Viewers flooded the stream. Comments scrolled too fast to read. They heard it. They saw the walls bend. Police arrived within minutes. Sirens bleeding through the chaos. The apartment fought back, slamming doors, killing lights, trying desperately to regain control of the narrative. But it was too late. Exposure burned it. Concrete split. The wall ruptured outward, revealing blackened material beneath. Charred wood, bone fragments embedded where insulation should have been. The smell was undeniable now. History exposed itself. When the feed finally cut, the apartment went silent. Not defeated. Contained. The official explanation came quickly. structural instability, undocumented fire damage, unsafe living conditions. The building was evacuated, condemned, and boarded up within a week. News articles focused on negligence, on lost records, on how something so dangerous slipped through inspections for so long. No one mentioned the whispers. No one mentioned the footage that disappeared hours after the live stream ended. No one explained why the fire records still didn't match the remains found inside the walls. I moved out under supervision. Police watched as I packed. They avoided the bathroom. One officer crossed himself quietly when he thought no one was looking. Before the door closed for the last time, I looked back. The apartment was quiet, but it wasn't empty. Months later, the building still stands, sealed, fenced, ignored. Occasionally, someone reports lights flickering behind boarded windows. Sometimes, neighbors claim they hear movement late at night. The city denies it. Developers lose interest. Plans stall. The address never gets reused. I kept one thing from that place. A copy of the lease addendum. No end date. Sometimes, when my apartment is silent enough, I feel that familiar pressure, like walls leaning inward, like something listening, waiting for attention again. I don't talk about it much anymore. That's the price of surviving. Because some places don't die. They just wait. And the apartment that was never empty is still looking for its next tenant. If you're watching this alone, keep the lights on. Subscribe for more real horror stories that were never meant to be told. And if you hear something tonight, don't answer it. If you like true horror stories, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep you updated. Thank you.